appear on the internet via Zoom. He is Ted, if you haven't got his book, I highly recommend.
Great information out there. The world should have it.
Affiliate marketing will, of course, get a bit of money for the talk show for talkers.
Well done.
Okay, folks, I am actually ready to go, believe it or not.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Mara.
I can't believe how efficient I've been today.
Julian will be in segment 2 that we'll be doing our interview. So you'll be observing for the first segment, okay? And are you staying with us for the entire show?
I would like to, but next to me there is a little fella, 6 months old, and he might have another idea. So I'm pretty sure I will be with you until I finish, and then it all depends on him.
Yeah, is there anybody else looking after him, or is it just you?
No, it's the mother, but the mother can get fed up with him.
Okay. Well, you can bring the mother and the baby. What's the baby's name?
Ulrich is the mother and George is the boy.
George, fantastic. So we'll get George on the show. He'll be one of our youngest listeners. Delighted.
I'm not sure.
Congratulations. Well done. That's great.
What's going on?
Well done. Okay, Mara, whenever you're ready. So Julian knows that he'll be on the second segment.
Yeah.
And we'll try and hang on to him for the other 2 segments, and we can have another chat with him about the books he publishes and the shows he puts on for people around the world.
Okay, Ted, are you ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. You're very welcome to the Talk Show for Talkers on irishtalkers.com. Our email address is info@irishtalkers.com. You can also find us on Facebook as the Talk Show for Talkers, and we always look forward to your comments, your questions, any feedback. Indeed, we look at that as evaluation. So we take your evaluations and we act on it. You can also listen to previous shows on our website, irishtalkers.com. We also publish the Public Speaking Weekly, and this is a roundup of links from the internet. It's all about Toastmasters, public speaking, leadership, confidence, and how to build it. So look out for the newspaper link on our website. My name is Ted Malamphy, and I am joined as usual this week by the prolific, persuasive, passionate, waving, gesticulating Paul O'Mahony, and he's got that zany cup that he has for zany shows like this.
Listeners, I don't know how you put up with him. Honestly, the man is extraordinary. And thank goodness on today's show, I'll have a chance to tell you what I really think about him.
Superb. And I know you love me, Paul, so we don't want you spreading that kind of love around the world at all. But it's a pleasure to have you here again, Paul. And this week's show is going to be that usual eclectic mix. We are going to be talking about, well, we'll have a thought for the week. I have a thought for the week. Paul has a word for the week. We have a very special surprise in store for you for segment 2. And we have someone that we are going to interview who is known throughout the Toastmasters world. And this man is going to charm everybody that tunes in to listen to him. Now, you're going to have to wait until tomorrow to hear him, but we have the benefit that we're going to be listening to him today because this is when we do our recording. I'm not going to tell you who it is. You will have to come back in segment 2, which means you will have to tune in again tomorrow at 4 o'clock and listen to this man's voice. And he's got a voice that you will never, ever forget because it's not just his photograph or his presence. He's got a voice that you simply cannot forget. My thought for the week this week is, if you think, what is my thought for the week again, Ted? I know what it is, I just want to get the right words. If you think you're too small to make a difference, just try sleeping in a bedroom with a mosquito. I'll say that again. If you think you're too small to make a difference, just try sleeping in a bedroom with a mosquito. Well, Paul, I can see you find that very funny.
No,
In the bedroom with the mosquito, it wouldn't be funny.
no one who's gone to bed with the mosquito would think it was funny.
You don't go to bed with the mosquito, you go to the mosquitoes in the bedroom. Big difference.
Once upon a time, you know the way you would get on a boat in Brindisi and you go overnight to Capri, or to Corfu, and you end up there with a wife of yours and you go looking for a place to stay. So you traipse across the island from east to west and you go to sleep on a beach. And you know what it's like when your wife wakes up, or when you wake up with a mosquito bite on your upper lip that expands and expands to the point where the only thing you can see on the other person's face is the bulge. After that, I've had a hate-hate relationship with mosquitoes. So the notion, I don't know who invented that quotation, by the way, because I disapprove of mosquitoes being brought onto the talk show for talkers. It is cruel, unkind, and since most human beings go around trying to squash the blood out of mosquitoes, if I was a vegan, I'd disapprove entirely of that kind of activity. So all I want to say is, from every point of view I can think of it, from, fair play for mosquitoes to fair play for humans, I disapprove of using that in the metaphor. On the other hand, you take somebody like me who is a really, really small person, if you take the whole of humanity into account, a person of almost no consequence, I believe I can make a little bit of a ripple in the world in keeping with the sentiments behind that quotation.
Actually, you said something there very relevant that I didn't give the person who came up with that quotation. The person who gave us that quotation, Paul, was Anita Roddick. Anita Roddick, very successful business lady, very charismatic person.
Body shop.
Body shop, yes. That's the lady who gave us that. And I think it's quite significant because it's not just the bite that you get, but if you're in a bedroom at night like that, particularly if you're on the continent, if you're somewhere in Europe, and you're in bed, you don't see the mosquito, but you can hear the mosquito. They're so small that they're insignificant, but they leave a large mark, as you say, the bulge. And as well as that, it can be quite dangerous because depending on where the mosquito had come from, it can be quite dangerous. So I think that's it's something to remember, that if you're going to say something to a crowd or to a person and you feel it's not going to have impact, then it puts it into context when you say, if you think you're too small to make an impact, just try sleeping in a bedroom and there's a mosquito. Not a herd or a horde of mosquitoes, just one.
Ted, didn't I ask you not to repeat the image of a mosquito in my bed? I think that was doubly unkind.
No, you're picking her up wrong, Paul. You will have to listen. You'll have to improve your listening skills. I never said that the mosquito was in the bed. I said if the mosquito was in the bed, it's dead because you're at the line on top of him. The mosquito is in the bedroom, flying around. Zzz, zzz. You cannot see it, but you can hear it.
Oh, listeners, save me from this. I was going to call it a facile conversation, but there's a lot more to it than that, really. And I don't think it was facile because the word facile means shallow and simplistic. And I certainly wouldn't call what's happened on the show so far today shallow or simplistic. So here's a word for you this week. Facile, facile. Came into the English language the day before yesterday. Ed, when did it come into the English language, facile?
17th century, I think.
All right, well, you're wrong again, of course. Ed never gets these right. It's a 15th century word, and it was brought into the English language when it meant that something was easily accomplished or attained. So you could talk about, well, that was a facile victory over the ferocious Franks. So facile victory over the ferocious Franks is what the Romans would have had at the time when they were beating everybody in France. So you can talk about Ireland having had a facile victory over the All Blacks, although I don't think anyone would believe you.
And if you have a victory over the All Blacks, it's never facile.
Exactly. On the other hand, there's another meaning for the word facile, and it is when somebody says something that is shallow. You can talk about somebody, I suppose you could talk about somebody making a facile case in favor of their release. But you could also say that somebody is offering a facile solution to a complex problem. A facile solution. Now, it's a good word to use when you're talking because it's a rich word. It's probably most of your audience will get the meaning. You're unlikely, unless you're talking to a group of people whose knowledge of English is very restricted. But I would say there are people who would understand the word facile, and especially if you use, when you're expressing it, a tone of voice which gets across how facile it is. So that's really undesirable, isn't it? To say something is facile. Anyway, you can also speak about somebody, this would be fairly unusual now. This would have gone on in the old days when somebody's a very fluent speaker. You might have said they're fluent and facile in the way in which they speak, but the word has morphed over the years from really being a synonym for fluent to being simplistic. The interesting thing is that it also has similarity with the word difficult. Difficile is a word either in Spanish or Italian, I couldn't tell you which. But so facile, facile, all of these things are connected. So there you are. A useful word. Ted, what do you think?
Yeah, interesting, Paul. I would have heard it used in the context of facile victory. Yeah, and I've read that sentence on many occasions also, facile victory. So that's good note to know exactly what it means.
I've never heard it used at a Toastmasters meeting, and I've been to more than a few. So it isn't a word that Toastmasters use often.
Well,
So,
after this show, no, next week they'll all be using it. They'll use it as their word of the week.
it'd be interesting to see if it could come up in table topics now. The idea that for example, locking down the country by bringing in quarantine, that's a facile solution, isn't it? There's the table topic for the club next week.
Interesting. What's the relationship between facile and facilitation?
That's a very good question, which we'll come back to in future episodes, listeners. That's a terrific way of leading us on. And thank you very much for this first episode, our first segment.
You're very welcome, Paul. And tomorrow we're going to have our our mystery guest. All shall be revealed. And in segment 3, Paul, you will be telling us how to renew our membership for Toastmasters. So that should be interesting in segment 3. And in segment 4, we are going to get all the secrets out of our guest as to how to write a bestseller book. So that should be interesting. And we're looking forward to that. And we have ways of making people talk, so we will not be disappointed. What do you think?
Right.
So I think that's a nice way to finish segment 1. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Okay. Okay,
We'll
Ted.
probably be killed by our.
Oh, I never, Marty, did you put up the right sign?
What? Well, I
Did you put up-
no, Ted. You know, I told you. You really need to pay attention, Ted. We've been using the chat for the last 4 or 5 weeks.
I actually had the chat open, but I saw no red mark on it or anything.
There's no red mark. I can't put red marks on the chat. I put 4 minutes. Then message from Germanix, that's a night, great smile, Paul.
Paul saw
Then
that
2
too.
minutes, then 1 minute.
Oh, I see it there now. No, I see it.
Dear, dear. I do worry sometimes, Ted.
Julian, this is what happens behind the scenes, you see. I promised a few people this morning, who shall remain nameless, that if they tuned in to the iTunes live streaming, they would see what a messy thing goes on behind the scenes when you're recording a podcast.
I think that's wonderful, actually, that the district director, Germanix, has tuned in to listen to us. That's
Indeed
great.
so.
He's a great supporter of everything that anybody does, isn't he?
He is?
He is now. If only people would. Ted, you're really on the mark now. You're in charge of the next segment.
Yes, when Morris comes me in, then I'll get that going.
Sorry.
You just know, Dan Rex might tune in a second. You just never know.
You never know. Stranger things have been known.
Yep. Julian's sound. I haven't heard a word out of him, so I just.
Well, his sound was very good. We had the sound earlier.
Yep.
Hello. Can
Well-
you hear me? Yes, you can hear me.
Yes, superb.
Yeah, as always, Paul, your sound is very loud. Can you edit it in the Zoom audio settings to drop your
I can.
audio a bit, because it means I'll have to do a lot more work in post.
I am going to put it on automatic adjustment now, Moira.
Oh, it wasn't on automatic. I always recommend automatic.
Well, there was a reason why I didn't have it on automatic, but that would bore the pants off you. Let me just see if I can get this little thing to move.
Well, you, just tick the box for the auto, and that's all you need to do.
Sure, look. There we are now. Tell me, what's my sound like now?
That's much better. Much better.
So that gives poor old Moira a need to equalise the soundtracks between
That's
Ted
right.
and I on the first bit of the show, and that's not too difficult to do.
It's done, but it means that I'm boosting Ted's background noise.
And if we were paying you for doing this, Moira, we'd have to pay extra for sound equalisation.
Absolutely. God, if I got paid for this, I would be so rich.
Well, now I'm keeping quiet now.
Okay, let's see now. We are ready to go to... No, we're not quite. I just need to get this off from there and onto that. Come on, paste. Right, said Fred. That's F5. What? Okay. F1.
Before you start, Ted, given the way you finished the episode off, and the promise you made that episode 4 would be ongoing chat with Julian. My suggestion is that we record episode 2 and episode 4 one after the other, and we leave my bit until the very end in case.
Well,
That's a good idea.
I thought you might like to interact with Julian as well.
Oh, sure, I will. But what I'm saying is the piece I'm doing on renewing,
Oh, yes, okay.
that could be the last piece, couldn't it?
Good idea.
It could, yeah, but would you not want to bring Julian in on that as well if he has something to offer us?
Well, if
Well,
he's still there.
But
Maybe, okay.
they might want to be on the third segment that we record today rather than on the fourth.
Okay.
You never know.
All right. We'll do it that way.
No. Okay, so my remote control is not working today, which is really annoying me. It was working earlier this morning. It's not working now. So a needle pulling thread. That's to get the so's out of the way. And that's got the ands out of the way. So now, Ted, are you ready to bring in the introduction to
Ready?
Julian? 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters listeners and friends. You're very welcome to segment 2 of this week's offering of the Talk Show for Talkers. And are you in for a treat? We have a Toastmaster a la Supreme with us. This is a gentleman, and I mean a gentleman, of the highest order. Mr. Julian Carceda. Welcome, Julian.
Hi, Ted. Thank you very much.
It's good to have you on the show with us, and I did say yesterday, I told our listeners that you had this very distinctive voice that one will not forget. I remember when I met you for the first time, I had to listen extra hard to get all the words, but now I can get all the words absolutely no problem. You are very welcome, Julian, to the Talk Show for Talkers.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here.
And it's our pleasure to have you on the show with us. And Julian, I will be asking you 5 questions. We ask all our guests the 5 questions, from notable Toastmasters such as your good self, to international presidents, to world champions of public speaking. And it's the answers that they give that create the magic on the show, because the questions are the same for everybody, but the answers are always totally different. Now, I say 5 questions, but you could be asked a lot more than 5 questions. I want to know, what is the name of your book or books that you have published?
I have published a book recently, Zoom Like a Pro, and surprise, surprise, talks about how to speak on Zoom.
Excellent. Speak like a pro. So do you give tips and that then about how to present yourself, what kind of a background to have, how to have the best sound?
I speak a bit of everything, that online presentations are not so different to physical presentations. You have to think about your audience. When you think about your audience, everything goes much better. If you only think about yourself, that's not the way forward. That's my tip, by the way.
That's excellent. And I must say about what George sounds very like Julian, doesn't he? He's got the same accent. It's outstanding. That's brilliant.
Actually, it's funny because George can speak now English, German, and Spanish.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic. George will be one of our youngest listeners ever. And I love the way he grabbed the opportunity to say something and enthuse the world to sing along with him. That's brilliant. Well done. I'd say he's a chip off the old block. Do you know what that means? Sounds just like his dad.
Okay. Well, that's good to know.
That's brilliant. That's brilliant. And with regards to the interview, Julian, I'm going to ask you the first question. What brought you to Toastmasters?
A broken heart.
Oh, this sounds very interesting. Is there love involved?
Well, I couldn't say love, but I was going through a rough patch. My girlfriend at the time we had a split, so we were not together. So I found myself in Manchester on my own. So I have to start from scratch, and I started researching and looking for different groups. And I found this thing that was called Toastmasters. They meet in a pub in Manchester city centre. And yeah, went 3 times before I managed to get in the right room. It was a big pub, a lot of people. Remember, the second time I went to the first floor, and there was a staff party. And as soon as I entered in the room, all the ladies, oh, the boy is here. And I said, wow, hold on. What is this? So I have to run away. And later I understood that, yes, there is another floor on top of that room, and that was where Toastmasters was having the meetings.
Interesting. So it took you 3 visits before you actually found the room that the Toastmasters were in.
Yes, that's what it is.
I know, you know that's a bit fast. So you know, I think what you were doing is you were having some of the drinks that they had in the pub, and you just had too many, and you thought you were in Toastmasters, but you weren't.
No, I don't think that's the situation. The situation is that you are shy. I mean, many of us have come into a room full of strangers and feel uneasy. And when you hear about these Toastmasters, does not have a very inviting name. That's it. So it's in the middle of the city center. You are on your own. You are a foreigner, because at the end of the day, I'm not a local from Manchester, and you find it on the internet, but it's not clear to you what this is. So yeah, that's what you. And I think it happens to many people. They are looking forward to find excuses not to attend. They know that they have to attend, that it could be a brilliant opportunity, but something is taking them back. And that's one thing that I learned, and from where I stand now is something I try to remove. I want to make sure that everyone who comes to Toastmaster has no excuse to run away before entering the room. Because I know that once you enter in the room, the magic happens, and it's highly likely that you stay in Toastmasters.
Well done. And what part of you're obviously not from Manchester. You're originally from Spain. Is that right?
That's right. I grew up in a lovely part of the world called Asturias, Gijón. It's like south of England, very green, but it's not very famous because it's not very sunny. So English and Irish people tend to go to sunny Spain. Here in the north, we have really good food, really good people, but we don't have sun. Therefore, it's a bit, ignored.
Yeah. Well, if you like it, that's all that matters. You said it's beautiful. Yeah. Don't say it's like the south of England. You get a lot more followers if you say it's like the south of Ireland.
Well, actually, South of Ireland, it could be. Seriously, it's, it's a society that is very outgoing. It is true that maybe in South of England are a bit more keeping the distance, while Irish people are more, hey, come on, yes, let's go to have a drink, or you are welcome. I was in Cork for the conference a couple of years ago, and the conference had finished. I have my flight the following day. So I was wandering around Cork, and I found this pub. Went in and ordered a drink and something to eat. The cook came out of the kitchen and said, no, I'm not gonna give you anything of what you say. I'm gonna bring you a menu. And brought me 10 different small dishes, delicious, all of them. Didn't charge me anything.
Oh, I should be wouldn't do the tapas.
Yeah, well, it was a bit of tapas, yes, and I was so surprised. A very good customer service, I can tell you.
Super. And that's what we do in Ireland. We give a nice welcome. And what has been the greatest benefit to you
Sorry, Ted. Excuse me just one second, because I live in Cork. Julian, can you remember the name of that place that gave you free food?
I know that the cook was an American. She was from Los Angeles. I do not know the name, but if I go to Cork, I know where I'm gonna go.
You'll have to
I know
come
where to.
and bring myself and Paul and Mara out. We'll have to have some tapas and a pint. No, good question, Paul. So, Julian, just to get back to that question, what has been the greatest benefit to you of Toastmasters?
There are so many benefits, and to pinpoint which is been the greatest benefit is difficult. It gives me, I have to say, great pleasure to see people that I can help. Seriously, I will say that for me that's the biggest uh, point or the highest point to belong to Toastmasters, that you can have an impact on people. And as you know, Ted, recently in 2019, we set up a Toastmaster club in Manchester, Manchester Communicators. We were a lot of people in Manchester. There was a club that had 60 members, but none of them, or very few of them, came to this new one, which is fine. We start doing things, and we start to attract people that have never been in Toastmasters. And I can tell you, some of them were very shy. They lacked the confidence. You know, in 6 months, I could see that people were completely different. And they were so, I want to do this, I'm gonna do this, I do this. Changed completely. And well, seriously, every time I speak about this club, emotions run high because it's something that I'm very proud. While people say, okay, but what did you gain? I would say personal satisfaction of being able to help people to become better selves.
Bravo, bravo. And that's what Toastmasters is all about, Julian, helping people to help themselves. So, what has been your biggest Toastmasters challenge?
Well, I don't know. It's been a few challenges, I would say. I set up 3 clubs. Manchester Communicators, we thought it's going to be a very tough club to set up because everybody was telling us that, nah, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. And it was very quick. Recently, we set up a sister club, Digital Communicators, that basically is the same but online. And that was even faster. In 1 month, we managed to set up the club and charter it in 1.5. So challenges, I don't know. Maybe challenge being able to take part in a speech contest and go beyond division level. I find very difficult that people that are not used to my accent, the first time they hear me, they struggle. It is true that once they know me, once they hear me a couple of times, they tune in or I tune into their ears. But that first time, and there are many judges, unfortunately, that is the first time that they see me, that being in different wavelength is what probably for me is the biggest challenge to give up that step up and being able to convince the judges that I have a good speech.
Yeah, well done, well done. If you could, Julian, what would you change about Toastmasters, if anything?
What I think Toastmasters is a broad church. It brings people from all sorts of lives. And I think there should be different ways of doing things. But one thing I always believe is that we have to keep challenging ourselves. No matter how good we are, we have to keep looking for new challenges. Because Toastmasters is a white canvas where you can play around and explore things that you can use in your personal life, in your professional life. So what I would like to encourage everybody is to keep pushing themselves and exploring. One thing that makes Manchester Communicators such a popular place is that we keep exploring. We don't want to replicate. Actually, the club is born out of frustration with other clubs that members could not change. Okay, we think this could be like this, like that, but you know, clubs that have been running for a long time are very difficult to change. So, all right, leading by example, we try to propose ideas. They don't come across in the way we want. No, never mind. We do it in our way, and well, I think the results are there, and people are happy. Well, that's what it matters.
Yeah, well done. And you use some lovely phrases there, like Toastmasters is a broad church, Toastmasters is a wide canvas. They're gorgeous phrases that you mixed in there. And when I think that it's not your natural language, that you normally you fall into speaking Spanish, they're lovely phrases that you have. You're really after taking to this English language like a pro. Well done. And what keeps you coming back to Toastmasters?
What keeps me coming? The challenge. I think the challenge of being able to help other people and to make an impact, as I say, to other people, to help young professionals. I felt that Toastmasters and my experience has always left behind young professionals because it's more conservative. The people coming to Toastmasters are a bit older. And that's what I felt. And therefore, that's the kind of people I want to help because it's good that you discover Toastmaster when you are, I don't know, 50 years. But it's not better if you discover Toastmaster with 30 years or even with 20 years. Straight out of or even at university. Imagine the potential, the growth you have there. And that's what I felt, that Toastmaster, for whichever reason is, has not been focusing on those younger groups. And I think that I could connect with those younger groups, and that's what I'm doing in Manchester.
That's wonderful. You've discovered the secret of Toastmasters, Julian, in that when we join Toastmasters, we join to guess. But once you're in Toastmasters, you soon, well, not soon, but you discover that the real magic happens when you give, when you decide to give. And that's something that you are doing on a grand scale, giving, because you've created 3 more clubs. You've published this book, Zoom Like a Pro, and we put the link up on the website for people to get that book because one of our presenters, Paul O'Malley, is a great advocate of books. He was born into books, and so we're all going to read that book. And Julian, it has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you on the Talk Show for Talkers, and thank you for being our guest this week.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you much.
And come back tomorrow when you'll be listening to the dulcet tones of Mr. Paul O'Malley, and he is going to be talking to us about how we can renew our membership. Well, I saw the 3 minutes, but I didn't see any 2-1 after it.
That's because I'm struggling with issues here.
Oh, that's okay. No,
Yeah.
Paul was.
No, I've been very lazy. I haven't been switching in and out and whatnot, and yeah, I've been very bad. Apologies for that, but
That's okay. Well done,
technology.
Julian. That was lovely. Well done.
Yeah, we
So
did.
you have 4 babies, so.
We have run way over.
You
My
have 4
fault.
babies,
My
Julian.
fault.
4 babies. You have 4 babies.
No, you have.
No, I have 1.
But what about those 3 clubs that you started?
Okay, fine, well. No, actually,
I gave you a right there, didn't
I have George, and the one I feel very identified with me, and I consider my kid is Manchester Communicators.
I?
Well, I helped to create Salford speakers. I took the back seat. While I helped to create digital communicators, I was not the figurehead, not the leading. I was there very close, but for me, the
Manchester.
with digital communicators, I think it's very easy because we have already done it. It was Manchester Communicators, the one who changed the dynamic. For 5 years, nobody had bothered to set up a club in Manchester. And it was no interest. People, and something that drives me mad, people saying, no, it's not for me. It takes a lot of time. No, so they are for themselves. And what I understand that sometimes you have to be for yourself. I don't think that's the true spirit of the organization. It is going to help you to improve. But as you say, you have to give as well.
Have you got any professional soccer players in Manchester Communicators? Because you've got a couple of fantastic soccer clubs up there in Manchester.
Actually, no. These people do not look for Toastmasters.
But there is an opportunity for you.
I don't think these people look for Toastmasters. These people look for personalized services. Somebody who goes to their home and help them at home. And I do not think they are very interested in public speaking. Having said that, those who are smart enough to see that their career is very short tend to explore different things. And they go on TV, and if they were really good players, look, Gary Lineker. Gary Lineker is probably the best example of you are a really good player, you are on top of the world, but you understand that you have to do something.
Well, there's your opportunity, and there's the angle. You approach the soccer clubs with those fantastic players. They have a short career, but a lot of them end up in a career in broadcasting. And to be an efficient broadcaster, you need to be able to communicate correctly and positively. So there is your angle. You will go in and have a club in the blue side and the red side of Manchester, and you will teach all those fantastic soccer players how to speak properly and how to communicate and how to have proper diction and how to have good grammar, and set them up for the rest of their lives.
Ted, you know what Mourinho says when he goes to a club? I need to earn £1 or €1 or one whatever more than the best player, the best paid player. And that's because otherwise he does not have any kind of a weight.
Yes.
He's looked down. So I understand what you say, but it's difficult to go with nothing.
But it's not, and there's another angle for you there actually, and you hit the nail on the head. It's not just the players you want to give your education to. You also want to give it to the managers and the people in the back room and the physiotherapists and all those people. There's another angle for you. You know, you'll be a multi-millionaire before you know it.
We'll see.
Okay, Mara, bring Paul in for today.
Yes, I was waiting for you to finish yakking. Can I ask a question? Can you see me on screen? Because I've hidden myself.
I can see you.
Okay, so I can give you the visuals then.
Thumbs up, yeah.
Yeah, I can give you the visuals. Sorry about that. I was forgetting. I've hidden myself so I can't see me.
Well, I can see your head, but the visuals are coming in very slightly only.
Oh, okay. I need to remove the background then.
Yeah, the background is interfering with them.
Yeah. Choose virtual background. I should just stay off camera for the stream.
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, that's good, no more.
Yeah. Okay.
That's great. If you give me that, Brett, I know we'll 30 seconds.
Yeah.
left then.
Yeah. Okay. That's no problem.
Ed, before you start, we're going to now do segment 4.
Oh, you're right, Paul. Sorry about that. Yeah. Right. About
Okay.
doing on segment 4, we're having a chat with Julia.
About other things, you
Yeah,
know.
about the book and stuff. We want to get more information on that. Yeah, good thinking, Paul.
Section 4. Okay. That's going to confuse the hell out of me. Right. Okay. Sorry, YouTube, for my language?
Just pretend you're doing segment 3 and let us.
Yeah, I've just got to. I've got to do. No, I'm going to do because that will confuse the heck out of me. I have to do. I have to zoom along to section 4. Okay, so stop that. I knew that would happen. Idiot. Egypt. We'll get there.
While Maura's doing that, Julian, have you ever done any podcasting or ever considered it?
I have done some webcasting or video casting. I have done for one of the projects, level 4, to do a podcast. I did a video podcast on Toastmasters around the world. But didn't carry on with it, but something happened, yeah.
Okay, we're ready, folks. We're ready, folks.
Would you guest on podcasts if anybody asked you, by the way, if you were ever asked to be a guest? Is it something you'd like to do?
Yeah, I've been in a couple of them. I think people here in Manchester, they have their own podcast, a small podcast. So if I'm, here you have to expose yourself in front of different audiences. If you stay home and you don't do anything, nobody knows you. I mean, you can be the greatest person in the world doing a lot of things, but if you don't promote yourself, your message doesn't get across.
Good point there.
So, Moira, you just tell us when you're ready, okay?
Yeah, I'll be ready for last 10 minutes. No, I exaggerate. But I am ready. I was waiting for you to finish chatting.
Oh, you can always interrupt me. Off you
Well,
go.
I did, but nobody heard me. Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Hello, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters listeners and friends. You're very welcome to segment 4 of this week's offering of the talk show for talkers. And we are so lucky that we still have Julian with us, and he is going to be chatting with Paul, and I might stick my nose into their conversation as well, because Julian is a wealth of information. He's written that book, Zoom Like a Pro, so we would recommend that. But Paul, would you like to kick off? And kick off is a good term because Julian comes from a country that are passionate about soccer, great soccer players. So Paul, over to you and Julian and George.
Listeners, just a small little start. If I have a choice between talking about the weather and talking about soccer, you'll quickly realise that I'm much more interested in the weather. Julian, what's the weather like in Manchester today?
Like most part of the year, very grey. Yeah, probably will rain at some point.
Great. So it means that most Manchester people today are in the dry anyway.
Yeah.
Good, good. Now look, I listened to you talking with Ted day before yesterday, and what really struck me was that how little I know about you, because you and I first met in Manchester, having you came and sat at the table that I was sitting at, and I said to myself, who is this man? So tell me, what do you do for a living?
That's a really good question. What do I do for a living? That's the question I've been trying to figure out for the last 3 years. I used to work in logistics. I used to run a small Spanish company in the figurehead. And with Brexit, things went south and many companies closed. One of those was the company I was working for. So I took the opportunity to travel around South America for a few months. Beautiful experience. And when I came back here, I tried to step away from the 9 to 5 or 8 to 5 or 7 to 6 I was working before. So I'm trying to do different things. Now, as you know, I wrote a book, Zoom Like a Pro, hoping to raise my profile, because the problem we have with presentations is not Zoom, is that we don't know how to present. This problem of people getting tired, we had it before. I'm pretty sure all of you have gone to events with 6, 7, 8 presenters, all talking, and saying nothing, or reading the slides. So these kind of things, I'm very passionate about that, and I think I can have an impact on that. Now, is that making me enough money to live with? I don't think so yet.
Well, one of the things about the book, which I have had the great pleasure to read, and one of the great things about the presentations I've seen you do around the theme of zooming like a pro, all of that has given me the impression that you are obsessed with making a good first impression.
Well, actually, if you want to sell your product, if you want to sell your ideas, if you want to convince people, you need to create a good first impression. And first impressions are created in less than a second. So if I think that the person I'm speaking with is a loser or is somebody who is interested only in selling me, I'm not going to listen to whatever he has to say. Now, if I like this person, because he has a good presence on camera, because he smiles, because he's kind, I might listen to him. And I might not agree with him, but it will cause a good impression and I will be more open to listen to him. And at the end of the day, that's what we want. We want to send our message across. Then, if people think that it's a good idea to do what you are saying, that's fantastic. If not, that's fine. At least they heard you.
That's brilliant, Paul. Actually, I'd like to compliment Julian on that, because Julian, you have only one opportunity to make a first impression.
Well, I must say here, I was a bit, how can I say, puzzled, because I thought that it was a podcast, but then they told me, no, you are going to be streamed online. So if I would have known that, I would have not come like this. I would have, well, dressed for the occasion, dressed to impress, that they say. Anyway.
But where I was going, Julian, with this exploration of you is that I'm wondering about the other side of you, which is about the content of communication. Now, let me ask you, what are the three things that really push your buttons so that you love what somebody is saying? What three things would I need to do in a conversation with you that would really have you glued to what I have to say?
All right, if we are talking in a one-to-one conversation, what you can do to get my attention is to show interest. And there are different ways to show interest. Repeating the question, nodding, smiling. Smiling is such a powerful tool, and some people don't like to use it. I have neighbors. I say, hello, good morning, when I cross them in the corridor or in the lift. They don't say anything.
So when you go into a Toastmasters meeting next week or the week after, and the first prepared speaker up there about to speak, what do you look for? Never mind if you're an evaluator, you're sitting there in the audience. What are you hoping for when it comes to the content? Not how somebody's dressed and the smile, but the content.
What I expect from anybody speaking, giving a presentation, is that they are not gonna make me waste my time, and that's the important thing. So they could be talking about things that I completely disagree. Okay, that's fine. But if he or she has prepared the presentation and is giving me ideas to check my own thoughts, my own ideas, and compare against them, that's fine. What I don't like is when people come not unprepared. And that's, to me, is a big no-go. And as well, another no-go is running over time, because that means that you have not prepared well enough. And here, unfortunately, at Toastmasters, we sometimes, or many of us, go over time.
Yes, but when we go over time in Toastmasters, the period is measured in seconds. I mean, if you're making a prepared speech in Toastmasters, a 5 to 7 minute speech, you're given a bit of flexibility until 7 minutes and 30 seconds. But 7 minutes and 31, you'll be disqualified in the contest. Have you ever been disqualified in a contest, Julian?
I have never been disqualified, and actually, in all the time I've been in Toastmasters, over 60 speeches I must have done, only twice I run over time, for a few seconds. And why was that? Because I was not prepared well enough.
Well, if you keep up that record and you stay in Toastmasters, until you're as mature as I am, I reckon you will have a world championship record there. Because do you remember the person who in the world championship final last year was disqualified for going over time by one breath?
What can I say? Rules are rules.
Fantastic. And tell me, what question would you like to ask Ted Melanfi now that you've been on the receiving end of questions from him? Let's give you an opportunity to ask Ted a question.
If you had the power of improving Toastmasters, how would you do it? What would you do it?
I think, and thank you, Julian, for that very interesting question. What I would do, what I find a challenge in Toastmasters is the stuff that we present from the point of view of education. I think Pathways is a wonderful tool. I absolutely love it. But for a lot of people, it can be difficult to maneuver their way around it, to navigate your way through exactly what you're looking for. I think it should be more user-friendly. I've visited many clubs, and one of their big bugbears is that the members cannot navigate or they cannot get into Pathways. And that is depriving them of a fantastic education, because the material is like gold dust. So thank you for that question, and that's what I would do. And that was a good question. Thank you. And that's a nice segue to the ending of this particular segment. And we will see you all again next week. So it's goodbye from me, Ted.
And goodbye from Paul.
And Julian and George.
Thank you much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
And it's been our pleasure, Julian, and it was great to meet George as well. And of course, we must not forget the lady behind the desk, Myra O'Brien. Thank you, Myra, for your efforts as well on this week's Talk for the Talkers.
Well done, Ted. Very nice ending.
Yeah.
Very nice.
Well done.
Well done, Julian. You're welcome to stay with us now for segment 3 if you wish to, or if you have to do your fatherly duties. We understand.
I think I'm going to go with my kid. Sorry about that. It's
Don't apologise at all. We're delighted to have had you for as long as we had you. Thank you.
It's been a pleasure, and I enjoy it so much. Thank you much for having me.
Well done. You're welcome. And make sure you listen in on Saturday, Julian, to your own segment, and on Monday then for the segment 4.
Okay, fantastic.
Adios.
Adios. Bye-bye. See ya.
Wow.
Lovely man.
Hi.
Lovely man.
What a wonderful guy.
Yeah, full of he's effervescent, isn't he?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, let's get that book, Paul.
Yeah, it's easy to get. It's on Amazon. It's,
Mara has it there. I'll order that now soon we finish here.
it's an e-book.
Was it all very good?
E-book. So that means that, I'm just looking here at the link, it means that you can get the Kindle edition
Yeah.
for the ridiculous price. I think it's scandalous, the price. I think he should have increased the price about 5 times, but it's only cost £2.29
God,
to buy.
Fantastic.
Lord have mercy.
You know,
That's great value.
it's ridiculous. I don't know who told him to charge that much money. I
Well,
think it's
Paul, maybe by charging €2, whatever it is,
Said a lot more, yeah.
he could sell 2 million copies, whereas if he
Yes,
charged
that's
a
good
tenner,
point. Hope
he'd
he does.
sell 25 copies.
Yeah, I think we'll have to spread the word. Paul, as a matter of interest, I meant to ask you, did you read that book that I recommended, The Gift by Edith Eager?
not yet. Not.
You got it, did you?
I'm pretty sure you sent it to me.
Yeah, well, no, well, I didn't send the book to you. I just sent you the Kindle thing again. Edith Eager. I mean, that's a ridiculous price as well, 99 cents.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing because there's some goods which, for example, the demand will go up if you increase the price. Simple example are handbags.
Right, yeah.
If you charge, €30 for a handbag, you won't get as many sales if you charge 130.
That's interesting. That's what happened actually down in Trinity Golf Club. Trinity Golf Club were charging €40 for around the golf. You probably heard the story, did you?
Yeah.
And they got on to Ballybunion, and Ballybunion says, no, we charge 250 and we're booked out. So they put their price up to 150 and now they're booked out as well.
Well, if only I could get on Trinity Golf Course for 150, Ted.
Is it more than that now?
The summer is 230.
That's ridiculous. No, it is a fantastic golf course. I played it 3 or 4 times, but it isn't worth that. No, I'm not with people serving all over the world anyhow.
Yeah, well, that means that I was going to invite you to Augusta, but you'd have had to pay 250, so I won't invite you now.
Is that all Augusta is? 250?
I think it's 250 to get a pint of beer. No, I have no
Why
idea.
not, is it?
I'm sure you wouldn't get onto Augusta anyway. It's, if you need to ask about the price at Augusta, you're not the right person.
I know you can go there, alright?
Oh, yeah.
You can, yeah.
Look up the green fee for Augusta and tell me how much it is.
Well, I'm not talking about, I mean, you can go there to watch the Masters.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, there we are, Toastmasters for Golf, first golf outing.
Is it Augusta?
Well, I can't break. I'd be breaking my lips are sealed, I can't reveal.
Or is it in the middle of Ireland or the south of Ireland?
Well, at present there's an auction going on between the different clubs to see who will get the privilege of having us.
Oh, so you're going to get paid to come there?
Yes. Oh yeah, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, what do you think? Do you think we're kind of making...
I think it's a marvellous idea.
I mean, we're going to bring so much status, and the TV company's already been booked.
Yeah, and you know what I'd suggest? That when you do go to that golf club, and when they do invite you in, that as soon as the golf is over, when you're finished with your showers and your steak, have a Toastmasters meeting in the clubhouse.
Well, that's very interesting, Ted. So far, we've only planned on doing table topics as we go around the course. We have 18 table topics planned, and on each hole, each of the 4-ball will have time to give their answer to the question.
And is it going to be recorded or what?
We'll be coming off the course with having done 72 table topics.
And are they going to record them or what?
Oh, yeah, of course we're going to record everything.
Yeah, and then you're going to publish that later, is it?
Oh yeah, it'll be a book and it'll cost a lot more than £2.29.
Right, you want a lot of sense, all right, to buy table topics that
They're
were
very grandiose
golf course.
masters for golf.
Well done. Mara has the wiggly eyes there, Paul, we better crack on.
Yeah. Will you introduce me, Ted? I'm talking.
Absolutely will, I'd be delighted to.
Yeah. Well, yes.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome, Toastmasters, would-be Toastmasters, listeners and friends. And this is the segment that I know you all wait patiently for every week. Because this is the place where Paul O'Mahony comes on and spreads his wisdom. Some gold dust, and he might even throw in a couple of pearls. So, Paul, you're going to speak to us about renewing our membership. So, over to you, sir.
Listeners, as Ted has just said, I do want to talk about renewing your membership. I'd like to talk about it at 4 different levels. The first is about renewing your membership of the human race. The second is renewing your membership of yourself. The third is the role for somebody who we'll say is a mentor in relation to renewing. And the fourth one is renewing your subscription for Toastmasters International. So there are 4 different levels. Renewals. Well, let's start with renewing yourself, and that's what I meant when I referred to renewing your membership of the human race. One of the wonderful things about Toastmasters is that it splits up the renewals in 2 different times of the year. What better time to consider renewing yourself as a human being than in the month of March? Just when spring begins, really, growth starts to happen. I look out the window and I can see daffodils, little slim ones in my garden. So there is growth out there. So in March, it's a really good time to renew yourself. Now, there's more to you than being a member of Toastmasters, so that means that you also have an opportunity to think about your relationships and your goals in life. Now, to keep it a bit focused in on Toastmasters, it's also a terrific, the renewal period in March is a great time for you to renew your goals. There's a terrific project in Pathways which is all about your vision and your goals. I would highly advise you to find it and do it, because it'll give you a great opportunity during the month of March, even in April, but better in March. The resetting your goals. When you join Toastmasters, I hope that fairly soon after you join, there'll be a conversation with your mentor in a club, and the mentor will be curious to know, what are your goals? Why have you joined? What do you want to get from this club, and how can we help you? All the sort of things that happen in the great Toastmasters clubs. You're never neglected. You're always, your goals are taken into account, so that the club as a whole can help you achieve them. So March is a great time for you to reconsider your goals in Toastmasters. You have time in order to get your credit in by the end of this Toastmasters year, for you to help yourself and also to help your club in the distinguished club program. But there's a role for other people in your life in Toastmasters too, and this is your mentor. Now, mentors are working with people, and it's a great opportunity for the mentor to renew their commitment to help you, to renew their commitment to their own self-development as a mentor, so that they will be getting better and better at being that kind of supportive mentor. And there's a great program in Toastmasters within the education program for developing yourself as a mentor. And that's certainly something that during March, all mentors, I hope, will consider renewing their ability to be a mentor. And then we get finally to the level which probably everybody thought I was going to talk about, which is how to get money out of people. You see, it won't be difficult to get money out of people for people to renew their subscription if they've had a mentor who's been helping them, if they've been thinking about their goals, and they've been also considering the wider application of their goals into the wider humanity and even into their personal relationships, then renewing your membership of Toastmasters will be, there'll be barely a moment's thought given to it. You just simply pay because you know the value. There are people who, in last renewal period, didn't renew. Why they didn't renew, probably most people don't know. What people say about why they don't renew isn't necessarily the full reason why they haven't renewed. So there's every good reason during the month of March to reach out to the people who didn't renew last time and tell them how much they're missed. Tell them how much you'd love it to have their company again. And express your commitment to helping them to renew their goals, review their goals. Ted, do you think there's any benefit in helping other people to renew at this time of the year?
Oh, I think there is, well, obviously, of course, there is for the health of the organisation as a whole, but something that often strikes me is I find it a lot easier when not to renew, but to pay the 12-month fee up front in July or August, whenever we pay it. I pay it, or September, is it? I pay it for the full year.
Yeah, but then the issue comes up about the next renewal period, because no matter if somebody has paid 6 months or they paid for a year, I'm increasingly thinking that, provided everything else is fine, that twice a year renewal is a very good thing, because what it does is if it's properly communicated, maybe this is a challenge for everybody, how to pitch renewal as something more important than just pay your money. Because if the club emphasizes, when it comes to renewals, if the only thing it emphasizes is we need your money, not we've loved supporting you, we've noticed what you've achieved, we've celebrated what you've achieved, you are a really important member of our club. If that has been communicated, then a lot more people might, decide, okay, I know I've been in the club for 2 years, I think I'm going to stay for at least another 2 years.
Yeah, that's a very good way of putting it, and it isn't just renewal, it is also an invitation to regrowth, which I think is a very important point, particularly, I'm probably making a liar of myself now, but particularly when you think that our renewals are in March, which is springtime, which is the time that we start to wake up again from our winter solstice, so to say, that we're coming out of hibernation again, and here we are ready to go again with vim and vigour. Yeah, that's good.
You see, often club presidents get an opportunity to speak at their own club meeting, and what better speech, if you like, short president's thoughts or whatever, than for a president to declare this is the month for renewal. You see, in the old days, before we had the online experience, a lot of clubs I know used to shut down over the summer for long periods of time. Still breaks my heart when I hear of a club that closes down for 3 months, but that's just my heart. But the point is that often the members then, they think of the year as starting in September. And that is not the renewal period for your subscription. It isn't, it's almost like falling back into association with school. Yeah. Now, we're all adults, who much and all as we loved our school, probably are quite glad that we're not still going to school and that we're our annual year. So I think that maybe it is possible for Toastmasters, the Toastmasters brand, to communicate the idea that we renew in spring. We renew when the flowers come out. And then having renewed, then we're ready for the foliage to grow on the trees and the long days to happen. This kind of way of talking appeals to me. It may not appeal, well, it certainly doesn't appeal to everybody, but this kind of growth, and you mentioned there, Ted, about growth, that is what Toastmasters is about, isn't it?
Of course it is, yeah. And this is a lovely time of the year. You know, there's a stretch in the evenings, it's brighter in the mornings, it's easier to get up. You know what I mean? So that it is a time for regrowth and for optimism and for looking out and for seeing the light at the end of the tunnel. So it is a good time. So if we emphasise that it isn't just about the money aspect, it's about regrowth and, you know, this is an opportunity to get going again.
It's also an opportunity for a member of the club committee who is the treasurer to practice their communication skills so that they become a lot more than a tax collector.
Yeah.
So that they communicate with the members who, at that time of the year, maybe whether they have paid until September or not, that the treasurer has a wonderful opportunity at renewal time to practice their communication skills. They could make a speech at the club. They could send a WhatsApp message out. They could craft an email, or even they could write a handwritten card to people. But the key thing is that, you know, people who become treasurers in Toastmasters are not really probably in Toastmasters to become a bean counter.
Yeah.
They're in Toastmasters to become an effective communicator and to give leadership. So I'm flying the flag this week on behalf of treasurers, vice presidents for finance, I think of them as.
Yes.
In fact, in the club that I'm president of, we have a vice president for finance. Very important role. So, Ted, renewals. Renew yourself, listeners, in a broad way. Renew how Toastmasters fits into the rest of your life. Work with your mentor. Both of you will be renewed. And pay your money. We need it.
Yeah, well done, Paul. And that brings us to the end of segment 3. So be sure to come back tomorrow and listen to what we have to say in segment 4.
Ted, I thought you could have introduced segment 4, previewed segment 4, seeing as we've already done it. You know what happened.
Oh, well, maybe cut him in. Do you want to cut him?
Yeah. Ted, do you want to say in segment 4 we'll be welcoming back Julian?
Julian, yeah. I thought I said that way to go at the start of it. Oh, yeah, but you want me to say
But this is the segue for the end because,
okay.
Yeah?
While Ted is doing that, I need to slip into the kitchen to get my charger from my phone. Moira, is that
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
Go ahead, so Mara.
Okay, Ted, 3, 2, 1, go.
So we will see you again tomorrow, and we have the pleasure of having our guest of this week, Julian Sakeda, with us again, and he will be enthusing us with his thoughts. So come back for that tomorrow. Is that okay?
Yeah. Enthusing us with his thoughts. That's a bit woolly, isn't it?
Or what did you think of the session yesterday?
Session yesterday. What was yesterday?
Beechcraft.
Ah! That was yesterday, was it? God, doesn't time fly?
Sorry, I didn't hear you. What did you say?
No, I'm things that happened yesterday, I forget, Ted. It's gone past, you know. Let's.
You're right, yesterday, girl.
Yeah. Before we go into general chatter, let's close down the stream. We'll say goodbye to YouTube. We'll see you again at the same time next week. Thanks for listening.